Welcome back to another wonderful week of learning. Today we have another chapter in Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of NIMH. It is called At the Meeting. So now we know, thankfully, Mrs. Frisby and the children are safe in their new houses, or their house has been moved to a new place. But now the rats seem to be in some sort of trouble. I'm wondering if the scientists are going to be able to come and exterminate them. Exterminate. Exterminate means to kill or to get rid of. So here we go. Let's see what happens. Mrs. Frisby slept well and soundly. The day just finished having been the longest and the hardest that she'd ever known. She awoke in the morning with a smile. Her house was warm and it was safe at last. Her children slept peacefully beside her. Timothy's breathing was quiet and easy. They could stay in the house now as long as they needed to. On some warm day later in the spring, when Timothy was strong again, they would move to their summer home down by the brook. Another nice thing, she thought, when they left the house, she would close up the entrance tunnel so that no one could find it. Undisturbed by the plow, it would be ready and waiting for them in the fall. It could be their forever home, thanks to the rats. The rats! In her half-dreaming state, she'd forgotten. They were in terrible danger. What would they do? She felt as if she ought to go and offer help to them. But help how? She could think of nothing that she could do. At that moment she heard a voice calling her name from above. Mrs. Frisby! She left the bed and went to the bottom of the entrance hole. Yes, yes, who's calling? It's me, Brutus. Can you come up? Mrs. Frisby climbed up and out of the front door, blinking in the early morning sunlight. Nicodemus wants to know if you can come with me. He's having a meeting. Oh, just let me wake the children and tell them. 2 minutes later, she was walking with Brutus towards the rose bush. What does Nicodemus want? It's about the men. Justin told us last night. Nicodemus thinks that they may be from NIMH. He wants to ask you more about what Mr. Fitzgibbons had said. That morning there were 2 rats on sentry duty, one just inside the entrance to the rose bush watching Mr. Fitzgibbon's house, another at the arch where Brutus had stood. All of the rest were gathered in a large assembly room. Mrs. Frisby had just seen that Mrs. Frisby had just seen when she got off the elevator. Nicodemus, Justin, Arthur, and 2 other rats sat on the raised platform at the end. The rest sat facing them, filling every square inch of floor except for an aisle up the center. Mrs. Frisby had never seen so many rats ever. Even the young ones were present. She spotted Isabella, staring up from the platform with wide, round eyes. Some of the mothers held small babies to their sides. Most of them looked anxious. There was an air of tension, but there was not panic. Brutus led her up the center aisle to the raised platform. There was a table on it, covered with papers, and one vacant space where the chair had been placed for Mrs. Frisby. The rats waited in complete silence while she sat down. Then Nicodemus said quite formally, Justin has told us all of what happened, Mrs. Frisby. It seems that you have more than repaid us for the help that we gave you in moving your house. Why, just as your husband did once, you have saved us from complete and total disaster. Death or capture, we do not yet know which it would be. Justin gave her a wink. Mrs. Frisby had a taste of capture herself last night. Would you tell us all, as well as you can remember it, word for word, what Mr. Fitzgibbon had said about the rats and the men who were there at the store? Well as I can remember it, said Mrs. Frisby, voice sounding very small in that very big room. Now, Mr. Fitzgibbon said that a strange thing had happened in the hardware store. Henderson's, I think he called it. Her memory was good. She had listened with great care for what Mr. Fitzgibbon had said, and she was able to recall the whole conversation, word for word. The rat sat quietly while she told it. Then Nicodemus went back over it, shaking, asking questions. You say that Mr. Fitzgibbons said that there were 6 or 7 rats. Did he ever say which number it really was? No, I don't think he paid very much attention to it. Well, Jenner's group was 7, said Justin, but it could be a coincidence. Did he say how far away the town was where this happened, or did he name it? No, no, but it must not be very far. He'd been there and back that day. Hmm. Did anyone see his car go out? Nicodemus asked the others. I heard it, Brutus said. I was on duty. It went after lunch. And then he was back by dinner. But which direction? If we knew, we might send someone, you see, Nicodemus explained to Mrs. Frisby. We need to know who those men are. If they're from NIM, things are very much worse for us than we are hoping. We'd never make it, said Arthur. Driving at, say, 40 or 50 miles an hour, Mr. Fitzgibbon might have gone 15 or 20 miles in any direction, and he returned easily that same afternoon. On the map, there was a road on the map on the table. Well, you can see it could have been any one of a half dozen small towns, and each of them might have been a hardware store. You're right, of course, said Nicodemus. Without the name, the idea is completely hopeless. He turned back to Mrs. Frisby. Mr. Fitzgibbon said the rats were grouped around a motor, as if they were trying to move it. Well, that's what he said, the store owner told him. He didn't see it himself, though. And that the motor was plugged in? Well, it had been left in. It had been plugged in, Mrs. Frisby quoted. But we don't know who plugged it in. I've got the impression, Mrs. Frisby said, from the way he said it, that the store owner had left it plugged in, but I'm not sure. That would make sense, Arthur said. If it were Jenner, and if they had plugged it in themselves, they'd have known better than to try to move it. So they must not have realized. It was probably pretty dark in the store. Oh, poor Jenner. I wish he'd stayed with us. It will be poor us, said one of the rats at the table. Mrs. Frisby did not know his name. If we don't get on with this and get on with it quick. He did not mention the doctor's name, Nicodemus said. Did he say even a word about what he looked like? No. Did he describe the truck at all? No, only that it was full of equipment. Are you sure about the headline in the local newspaper? Mechanicized rats invade the hardware store? I'm sure that's what Mr. Fitzgibbon said it was, but I don't think he saw it. He didn't say so. In a way, that's the most puzzling thing about the whole story, Nicodemus said. Why is that? Asked Justin. Because the headline doesn't really fit the facts. You don't call a bunch of dead rats mechanicized just because you find them on a shelf near the motor. Maybe not, said the nameless rat. But then why did the newspaper say that? I'm wondering, Nicodemus said, if perhaps there wasn't more to the story, some stronger reason to think that they were really taking the motor away, or that they knew how to use it. Maybe some other motors had been stolen, Justin said, or some tools. That would make them seem as if they were mechanical. It would, said Nicodemus, and it would explain what the doctor meant when he said they had more checking to do in town. They're looking for the things that were missing, Arthur said, sounding suddenly worried. Why, they're looking for Jenner's headquarters, and if they find that... We're all guessing, of course, Nicodemus said, but it is a possibility, and it's a bad one. It means, Nicodemus continued, that we have no choice. We've got to assume that they're from NIM. We've also got to assume that by now they may have found Jenner's headquarters, whatever cave or cavern they were using. And, said Justin, that now they're looking for us. Well, why are they looking for us? Asked one of the rats. Why wouldn't they think Jenner's group are the only ones? Well, they might, Nicodemus admitted, but I don't think so. After all, they know that there were 20 original rats from NIM. Why should there only be 7 now? And we already know that they're coming out here. in quite a hurry at that. So, if they're from NIM, obviously, they are looking for us. I think, said Arthur, that we've got to make some plans and we've got to make them quick. I agree, said Nicodemus. It's a new situation now and a very tricky one. We won't be able to do everything that we hoped. There isn't going to be time. And somehow we have to convince the exterminators, when they come, that we aren't more of those types of special rats that they're looking for. We won't be able to move any more food to Thorn Valley, Nicodemus continued. We'll have to get along on what we've already stored there, about an 18th month supply, I suppose, if we're careful. The seeds, I believe, well, those are already moved. Yes, said Arthur. The last load went yesterday. So, with luck, we'll have our own first crop this summer, later this fall. We won't have any time to destroy the motors or the books or the furniture that we planned as we had planned. Instead, we'll move everything to the cave, and then we'll seal off all entrances to the cave as if it had never existed. That can be done, Arthur said, but there's more. We've got to pull all the wires and the lights from the tunnel. They're likely to dig it up, and the carpet. We've got to tear down the arch. Then, when all that's done, when everything is hidden in the cave, we'll fill in the stairway and the elevator shaft. We'll seal off everything except for the upper storage room and the tunnels leading in the front and out the back. When they dig, let them find that room. It's a big, old, ordinary rat hole. Justin, tonight take a group of a dozen or so. Go to the Fitzgibbons garbage can. Bring back a load of the worst-smelling garbage you can find. The storage room is going to become an ordinary, typical rat hole, not in the least mechanical or civilized. Nicodemus turned to Arthur. What do you think? I think we can do it all. We won't get much sleep, though, Justin said. But there's one more thing. Won't they think it's odd, especially if they're from NIM, finding just an empty hole? Nicodemus said. I was coming to that. He sounded suddenly very tired. Tomorrow morning, as soon as it is light, the main group leaves for Thorn Valley, but some of us are going to have to stay behind. As Justin says, if they find just an empty hole, they're sure to be suspicious, and they'll keep on digging. So when they come with their gas truck, we've got to find some rats here. A rear guard, I'd say, at least 10. Mrs. Frisby walked slowly home, keeping to the edge of the woods, keeping out of sight. Justin had instantly volunteered for the rear guard. Brutus was second, and behind him 8 more. There were 50 more waiting behind them. Enough, 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 said Nicodemus. Isabel was in tears, had run forward. I want to stay, please, she had pleaded, looking despairingly at Justin. No children, said Nicodemus, and her mother led her away, still crying. Those 10, the 10 who would remain, did not face certain death nor certain capture. The exterminators, they presumed, would make noise, especially if they cleared away the rosebush. The rats would be alerted, and when the men pumped gas, as expected, into the hole, the pump would also make a noise, and the air below would move as the gas flowed. And when they felt that, the rats would scramble out of the back exit, past the sealed-off cave, emerge as noisily as possible in the blackberry bramble, indeed show themselves and dash off into the woods. But won't they block the rear exit or put a net over it? We'll give them another rear exit to block, Arthur had said. One that's easier for them to find. Mother, why are you so quiet? Asked Teresa when she got home. They were sitting down to dinner for the first time in their newly moved house. You seem so sad, Mother. Well, I suppose I am, Mrs. Frisby said, because the rats are all going to go away. But that's no reason. It's true they moved our house, and that was very nice of them, but we didn't really know them. Well, I was getting to know them pretty well. Where are they going? Cynthia asked. To a new home, a long, long way. When? Tomorrow morning. Will you go to see them off? I think I will, I think I will, said Mrs. Frisby. But why are they moving away? Asked Timothy. Because they want to, said Mrs. Frisby. Some day soon she would tell them the whole story, but not that night. And that, my dear children, is the end of that chapter. And so it seems that the rats now have a plan to escape and to get to Thorn Valley, but I am worried about the 10 that stay behind. I surely hope they're going to be okay. We are down to our last 2 chapters. Tomorrow's chapter is called The Doctor, so I'm thinking it must have something to do with Dr. Ages. So today I want you to write me and tell me, what do you think is going to happen to those rats that stay behind? Are they going to be able to outsmart those scientists from NIMH? Let me know in 3 to 4 sentences, and make sure to use information from the text. So if you say, I think the rats are going to die, I want you to explain why you think that. If you think the rats are going to outsmart the men, I want you to share information from the text and tell me why you think that. So whatever you think, I'm dying to hear it. And have a fabulous, wonderful day. I will see you all. Goodbye, beautiful children.